Good morning, friends. Okay, I'm gonna full disclosure here. I overslept this morning, which never ever happens, but it did. Slept until 7:30. Wow. And my morning went and so all the like cute plans I had to like read and prep my thoughts for this workshop did not happen until like 10 minutes ago. So we're gonna see what happens today. We're gonna see what comes out today. The irony is that like the prayer and meditation was so rushed today, but whatever, we're just gonna go for it, right? So, okay, today's topic is prayer and meditation, and I'm gonna also keep an eye on these earrings because they're fabulous, but they make a lot of noise. So, anyway, so prayer and meditation. Why do we need prayer and meditation, guys? Well, as we know, and as we've discussed, in the point of these 12 steps, as indicated by step 12, is to have a spiritual experience, right? That is the result of working the 12 steps. It's not a result, it's the result, which means that we're working the 12 steps in order to have a spiritual experience. And we've had workshops prior to this to just explain why we need a spiritual experience. But essentially, just to review, I have a disease in which I am powerless over food and life and other people, and I have a default setting of restlessness, irritability, and discontentment, which I then medicate by eating compulsively. I don't want to do that anymore, but I crossed a line at some point where I couldn't stop myself from doing things I didn't want to do. And so I needed a power greater than me. I was unable to access that power on my own devices. Um, and so I had to work the 12 steps in order to clear out all the things that were blocking me from accessing that power and help me find that power. And as it says in the big book, that power is to be found within. But even if, for example, I have a house with a lot of people, and let's say I have some really special prize hidden in my house somewhere. So it's in my house, but I have no idea how to find it, especially when my kids leave their crap everywhere. If you want to know where my son is, just follow the trail of clothes that he leaves through the house, sort of like the crumbs in the woods. But the point is, I have to clean my house out in order to find the thing that I'm looking for. Yeah, these earrings are something else. I love them though. They were thrift. They're so cute. Anyway, so the point is, if my higher power is to be found in me, I spent a lot of years looking out there for the thing that was going to make me feel better. And even on my spiritual search, I spent a lot of time looking out there. I traveled all over the world. I was in Germany and I went to see this Indian avatar, true story. And, went to all the different places and tried all the different classes and did Tai Chi and, read all the books. And I was looking like waiting for that thing to click where it was, that I would go out there and find my higher power. But the bottom line was that I had to go inward and find my higher power inside. And the only way I could do that was to clean up the mess and reorganize. So that's what the 12 steps are for. So let's say that a person has come into OA and gotten abstinent because getting abstinent is the prerequisite for working the steps, not the other way around. That's my personal opinion, does not represent OA as a whole. But I believe that the steps will not work if I'm still using food. So if I get abstinent and work the 12 steps and I have this spiritual experience, great. Now what? Well, the last three steps of the 12 steps are maintenance steps. So 10 we know, which we've talked about, is continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Why? Because we want to make sure that we don't get that mess and that clutter again that will make it harder for us to tap into that higher power, right? So I got to keep clearing out stuff that's coming in and it's going to come. It's going to come in. Somebody's going to piss me off. My husband's going to say something. I'm going to get fearful about, I don't know, money, or something's going to come up and I'm going to need to work through it. It's just the natural process of being human. Thank God I have tools to deal with that today, but that's the point. These things come up. So that's why I have to keep taking that inventory, because I need that channel clear. Excuse me. I don't like clean and dirty. I don't like that. But anyway, so then we have step 11, right? Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him. Okay. So that in and of itself is a pretty like rich sentence, right? So I'm using the big book and I'm using the AA 12 and 12. So just giving you guys a heads up about that if you want to read along. But anyway, okay, so thought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so prayer and meditation are the tools that we are using to improve. That means we already have it and now we're making it better, right? Now that means that like I've said in this workshop before, my first prayer ever was going to the beach, looking up at the sky and saying, I don't really know if you're there, but my sponsor says that I'm supposed to talk to you, so I'm talking to you. Okay, thanks, bye. Like that was my prayer. Now, not the deepest, richest spiritual experience, but it was a beginning, right? I had established that connection. I had made the beginning, I had started. So now the prayer and meditation is used to improve what I've started to build. It's always about improvement. It's not about perfection. It's about taking what we already have and just leveling up a little bit, okay? Our conscious contact. So let's talk about conscious contact, okay? I am one of those people, I'm very good at maintaining relationships, like with people who I want to maintain relationships with. People I don't want to maintain relationships with, like, but people who I want to maintain relationships with, I'm very good. I do, like, I send the texts, I send the memes, I send the Instagram reels, I send, hey, what's going on? I call, we meet for coffee. That's how I maintain a relationship. If I don't do those things, the relationship ceases to exist. So I can say, for example, like I live with full time, I live with 4 men. I live with my husband and 3 sons. And I also have 2 stepdaughters who are 20, almost 24 and 22. So my girls don't live in my house all the time. They come a lot, but they don't live in my house all the time. So technically, I don't have to talk to them except when they come to visit, right? Or come for the weekend. But actually, we text, we talk, we send pictures, what's going on today. One of my stepdaughters is much more reserved than the other one. And I'll call her just to be like, hey, just telling you I'm thinking about you. That's how we maintain a relationship. If I don't call them and I don't get in touch with them, I'll see them when they come to visit, but it's not the same. It's like, I'm so happy to see you, but now they know that I'm really happy to see them. And like, what did you want? Can I get you something before you get here? Can we, what are you up to? Can we meet for dinner? Blah, blah, blah. Fine. That's conscious contact, right? Like reaching out, talking, thinking about what's going on, checking in. If I don't make that effort to communicate with my higher power, then I'm not having conscious contact. I can't, I did the whole like foxhole prayer situation, like when I was choking to death, when I was bulimic, when I was purging and saying, God, please just save me and I'll never do this again. So God was like, okay. And the food popped out of my throat. And then 10 minutes later, I went back down to the kitchen and it took me like 5 more years to talk to God again. So yeah, I wasn't, that's not conscious contact. That's just like, hey, I need something. I'm sure, some of you are parents, right? Like it's one thing when it's so exciting when our kids call us, right? It's like, oh, we love you, yay, my kid loves me and they want to talk to me. It's a very different relationship talking to my child or texting with my kids every day versus hearing from them once a month when they need money. It's just a different relationship. So I'm thinking about God, like, am I checking in with him every day, telling him what's going on, or am I just calling him and be like, hey, can you help me pay my rent this month? Okay, thanks. Like it's just a different relationship. And it's not fulfilling for either of us. And listen, I believe that God is all encompassing, which means that I am a piece of that. And my soul longs for connection with its source. And I don't care what religion you are or not. I don't care how you affiliate or not. We are all spiritual beings having a human experience, which this program proves. Because and Freud said this, by the way, they talk about this. Freud said that, and that Freud was somebody who happened to work with alcoholics. And he said that alcoholics and addicts are people who have an inherent thirst for God. Now, people in general, human beings in general, have that inherent thirst. We're built that way. But we addicts are lucky because we feel it on a visceral level, and that separation from our source is so painful that we have to medicate ourselves with alcohol, food, shopping, whatever it is. Once we take that away, that separation is still there. That separation is painful, which means we need to bridge the gap. And that means building that relationship. How do we do that? With prayer and meditation. So let's talk a little bit about what prayer and meditation actually are, right? So it says also here, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. I do want to talk about that for 1 second. I'm an addict, right? So I can sometimes be like in extremes. So for about 20 years of prayer and meditation, I would only ever pray and say, God, please show me your will for me and the power to carry that out. Now, that was partly because I was afraid of doing it wrong and because I didn't want to like tempt fate or like ask for too much, or how do I know what God's will for me is? How could I ask for something and blah, blah, blah. Excuse me. And in that way, I got in my own way where I was so like rigid about only asking for those things that I realized I wasn't really exercising my faith. Now that's not to say that like, God, please send me a new wardrobe. Like, I don't need that, you know? Thank God we have really good thrift stores around here, so I don't need to worry about that. But what I am saying is it's okay for me to ask God for things as long as it's not selfishly motivated. For example, let's say that I'm self-employed, I'm a writer, and I work with clients and write for them. So let's say I have clients and I'm done with all my work for my clients, and all of a sudden my client roster is empty, right? It's okay, in my opinion, to say to God, listen, God, I need work. I need clients. Please send me clients. Not because I want to have $1 million, but because I have a responsibility to support my family. You gave me this family. You blessed me with these children. You blessed me with a husband. You blessed me with this beautiful house and a dog and 1 million cats and, you know, all the things. You gave me this responsibility. I want to fulfill it. So please continue to send me work because first of all, I want to be self-supporting. And second of all, I want to do your will for me, which is fulfill my responsibility as a parent and a pet owner and a grown-ass woman. You know, like that's what I have to do. That's okay to ask for those things. I didn't let myself ask for those things for a long time because I thought it was selfish, but it's actually not selfish. Now, if I said, God, I saw this really cute dress in Tel Aviv, and I just think she and I belong together. So can you make that happen? Like, no, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. If the dress is meant to be mine, we'll work it out. Like, that's not a prayer that needs to happen. Now, what I can do is say, God, I saw this girl in Tel Aviv. She should be mine, but I'm having some thoughts. Maybe that money should be best allocated elsewhere. What are you thinking? Like, should I get her? Should I leave her be? Like, what's going on? That's a great prayer because now I'm checking in to see what God wants me to do. So the idea of God's will for us and the power to carry that out, I don't have to just say that in broad general terms. I can get specific into the nitty-gritty because I don't know how to run my life by myself. What happens when I run my own life? I end up in a 12-step program. So I need guidance and support. So even when it comes to that nitty-gritty stuff that like I might inherently say, God doesn't care if I buy that dress or not. Yes, God does. First of all, God cares about my wardrobe, okay? God loves my wardrobe. So no, God cares. Second of all, I need money. So God's going to show me how to use the money that God gave me, right? So that's what I'm saying. So now I'm looking at the 12 and 12, AA 12 and 12. It says, and I did this in the beginning too, in the third full paragraph, it says that newcomers and one-time agnostics can still cling to the AA group as their higher power. So that was definitely my experience when I first came in. And it wasn't just the group, it was my food plan and abstinence, right? That's the interesting thing about OA that separates us, I think, from the other fellowships is like in AA or NA or wherever, just stop drinking, don't gamble, like just stop, the end. Whereas in OA, like we have to have 3 meals a day and deal with our drug of choice every single day and use it and ingest it in a way that is healthy and nourishing. That's a tall order. I can't, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a sober alcoholic, and he's like, you have to like eat your drug every day. I was like, I know, I'm kind of a badass. Like, he just doesn't drink. The end. So when I first got into OA, I was in a group with women who were really, really abstinent, like really like aggressively abstinent, and were really into their food plans. And so I did what I was taught. I was new, so I'll do what I'm taught. I don't care. So for me, it was all about the food plan and the weight loss and the body size for a really, really long time. And then once I got really thin, and I looked the way I thought I should look, that's when I figured out that I still had a problem. Because even though I was doing all the things I was being told to do, I was still sick. I was still angry. I was still restless. I was still uncomfortable. I was still rageful. I cannot explain to you the feeling of rage boiling right under my skin. Like all you had to do was that, and all of a sudden, rah. That's how I felt. And I was abstinent. I was weighing and measuring every piece of food that went into my mouth. I was 125 pounds and I didn't have my period, but God damn it, I was abstinent. But I was still sick, which meant that that abstinence and that group and that size 2 genes could not be my higher power. It wasn't going to do it for me because ultimately that discomfort and that pain of separation that Freud talked about was going to get to me eventually. Even if I was able to somehow white knuckle my abstinence for the rest of my life, my relationships would be a disaster because I can't imagine. It was so uncomfortable for me being myself, like wound up like this and anxious all the time. Can you imagine what it must be like to live with someone like that? If my mother was alive, I would call her and be like, God bless you for putting up with me and my self-righteous, abstinence, whatever. So the point is, the resources we have in this program and the tools we have in this program are wonderful, but they will only stand in for a higher power for so long. Eventually, we have to step away from our sponsor and our fellows and our meetings and our abstinence as the source of our recovery and recognize them for what they are, which are incredibly magical tools. But they are not recovery. They're not. They're necessary to recovery, but they are not recovery. Okay, so I'm just being very clear about that. Fine. So once I recognized that I was actually still really sick and I needed help, I went to somebody who I knew had recovery that I wanted beyond physical. And I said, and this person worked the 12 steps out of the AA Big Book. And I said, please just tell me what to do and I'll do it because I can't live like this. It's so uncomfortable. Like there's nothing, the only thing worse than an addict who's using is an addict who's not using and not in recovery. It's like, it's bad. But anyway, so this person took me through the 12 steps and I started building that relationship with a higher power. And she told me about prayer and meditation. And I started practicing. Now, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like meditation, what is that? Like I have to go to an ashram or something? Like, no, actually, meditation is a lot more simple than that. The way I've heard it described is prayer is talking to God, and meditation is listening for an answer. In my experience, it's also more than that. It's not just listening for an answer. When I am able to step back from my own thoughts, and I'll talk about this in a minute, and tap into that place of the observer and that inner quiet space. I call it the lacuna. A lacuna is like an empty space within like a wider, for example, like in the ocean, you can have like a little cave and there's no water gets in there and it's like a lacuna, like an empty little space. So when I can get into that lacuna, it's like I get to just dwell with my higher power and be. That's the conscious contact. Sometimes I can be with someone I love very much, like a best friend, and we don't have to say a word. And we can just sit next to each other and drink our tea and look out the window and say nothing. We can sit on a train and ride for hours and just sort of have companionable silence and just be together. For me, that's the real joy of meditation. So I am going to share a little bit of my experience with that in a second, but I do want to just read this section of step 11 on page 97. It says, those of us who have come to make regular use of prayer would no more do without it than we would refuse air, food, or sunshine. And for the same reason, when we refuse air, light, or food, the body suffers. And when we turn away from meditation and prayer, we likewise deprive our minds, our emotions, and our intuitions of vitally needed support. As the body can fail its purpose for lack of nourishment, so can the soul. And that really is the experience of the addict, right? If I don't feed my soul and my soul is in pain, my soul is malnourished, and I don't know that, I'm going to try to nourish it in ways that are damaging to me, either through eating compulsively, through buying too much stuff, by drinking and numbing out my feelings, by watching too much Netflix, by scrolling on Instagram. These are the things I think I need when really my soul is hungry. I thought my body was hungry. My soul is hungry. For alcoholics, they think their body is thirsty. Their soul is thirsty. Now, I'm imagining somebody sitting in this meeting, like coming to this workshop, and it's like their first time going to a meeting ever and being like, what the fuck is this woman talking about? Like I'm just fat, like, or I can't stop throwing up, like, or I'm starving. Like, what is she talking about my soul? Please just don't leave. like, please just stay here and listen, because if somebody had said that at my first meeting, I would have been like, bye. I even saw the word God on the 12 steps at my first meeting, and I was like, nope. But I did know that there were people in the meeting saying things that I could relate to, which I could never heard anywhere else. And because those people had been through what I'd been through and had something that I wanted, I was willing to listen to what they had to say. And what these people's experience has shown, just like in this book, says that as they went through the steps and started practicing prayer and meditation, not only did they not need to use food anymore, they started to feel well. And I don't mean just physically. I mean, they experienced emotional balance. They experienced purpose. They experienced wholeness. That sense of missing something, of something being off, went away. So over time, I was willing to take their suggestions. If you had come at me with step 11 on day one, I would have been like, I'm out. No. But ultimately, this is what unfolds through the practice of prayer and meditation. There's an expression, more will be revealed, right? It says it here also, like, of course, we finally did experiment, and when unexpected, they're talking about prayer and meditation, when unexpected results followed, we felt different. In fact, we knew different, and so we were sold on meditation and prayer. After that, we have found can happen to anybody who tries. In other words, because I sat and I started praying and meditating, I got results. It's the same thing with the big book. And I've said this before. The big book is a sales pitch for recovery, for the 12 steps. And their sale is, hi, we had 100 people who couldn't stop drinking like you, and they did this thing and it worked. So we can 100% guarantee that it will work if you do this. Our experience is the proof, so you can do it too. That's the same thing here. Based on what these people have said, and based on what people who I respected said, prayer and meditation, go do it. It gave me experience that I can now sit here today and tell you, prayer and meditation works, do it. So now I want to talk a little bit about meditation, right? Because meditation, prayer is one thing, right? So yeah, before I get to meditation, I'll talk about prayer. Prayer is, here it says, to set our hearts and minds to God. Now, there are a lot of ways you can do that. There's two-way prayer, which is written. That is actually my personal comfort zone because, as I said, I'm a professional writer. For those who are not familiar with two-way prayer, it's a practice of sitting in meditation first for 10 minutes, writing to God as if like questions or concerns or whatever you have going on, and then writing back to yourself, like letting an external voice, or really an internal voice, letting a voice speak to you and give you a response based on your question. Now, there are some days that I do that, and it's very clear that I'm writing to myself, but I'm tapping into a knowledge and a deeper sense of wholeness in my own response. So even if I know that I'm the one writing back to me, I'm answering from a place that's not the fear and the mind and the blah 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 happening in my in my crazy. It's tapping into a deeper wisdom, which I have inherently, which in my opinion is part of my soul, which is part of God. So really it is God answering me. Okay. Um, so there's that. I am a religious Jew. I live in Israel. We have our Hebrew prayers. Do I say them? Nope. Not because I don't think they are beautiful. I think that they are. I'm rebellious, I'm lazy, and they don't resonate with me all the time. I know for sure that they would if I took the time to sit and really study them and study what they meant. And I do know what a lot of them mean, but I'm not willing to do that today. Maybe tomorrow, but today I'm just not. Now, that's not to say that I don't say some of the prayers, like when I do some of the things, but it's not part of my everyday routine. My spoken prayers are really prayers that come from the heart, things I have questions about. It's more of a dialogue. And P.S., I have nothing against, like I said, I have nothing against Jewish prayers. They're actually really beautiful and poetic. I'm just not informed enough. I haven't educated myself enough. Let's put it that way. Um, I know for a fact that um, different religions have their own set prayers. If they speak to you, do it. If they don't, okay. There's no hard and fast rule here. And I also believe that God, I think of God like I think of my late mother. My parents had fertility problems, and this was in like the late 70s, early 80s. So like the only solutions they had was like a turkey baster and some Vaseline. Like that was it. So like for 7 years they tried and tried and tried, and then they couldn't have kids, and the doctor was like, you're like, doctors told them you're never having children. And this was devastating to both of them. Unfortunately, it was really sad. And then they lined up an adoption. The adoption fell through, and then they found out that they were pregnant with me. They to this day, they don't know how I showed up. I should not be here. When my mom was pregnant, she started bleeding. I implanted so high in the uterus that it just missed me. Like I should not exist on this planet. Okay. And yet here I am. And I have three younger siblings who were born within 3.5 years after me. Like to the point where my mother realized she was pregnant with my sister after my second brother was born and thought about having an abortion because she was like, I can't handle all these kids. But she ended up having my sister, so thank God. But that doesn't mean I don't make fun of my sister and say that my mom almost aborted her. Anyway, so it goes over big. She likes it. It's funny. Anyway, so my point is my mom and my dad really like they thought for so long that they weren't going to have children. And then all of a sudden they had four in less than 5 years. So they weren't like those parents who like have their children and are like have an agenda for them. My mom was just so thrilled that we were there that she didn't even care. She was like, you do you. You can be like, you could dye your hair purple and wear a tutu and like, I do you. Like, I'm just so happy you're here. I really think that God's like that too. I really think that God, it says it in the big book, God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. God is just so happy to talk to us. God is so happy we're here. It really doesn't matter what we say. God just wants us around. God just wants us to hang out with him or her or it. I don't know what God is and I don't care. I just know that God is, and God loves me so much and is so excited when we hang out. I get so excited, like I think about like when my girls come home, every week we have Shabbat, the Sabbath. So every other week, my girls come home and all five of my kids are home. I'm so excited to have all of my kids at home, right? Like that's how God feels every morning when I'm like, good morning. And God's like, hey, what's up, girl? Like it's so great. So prayer, you want to say your Hebrew prayers, you want to say your mass, you want to say your Buddhist, and do you. Like it's all a vehicle to the same source. And God is just so happy to hang with us. I really, really believe that. So that's what I have to say on prayer. Okay. You do you. Now, meditation is a different animal. I've been a regular meditator for over 20 years now. Now, am I an expert? Hell no. Half the time I'm like I'm planning my next Instagram post. But the point is, I have learned a fundamental lesson about meditation that I want to share with you because it really changed things for me. Meditation is two things. I heard a definition of meditation that I really like by a rabbi named Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, who I named my son after. This is not OA approved literature, by the way. But if you're interested, I can tell you more. But anyway, he defines meditation as directed thought. That's it. I can take my thoughts and direct them someplace. So that might mean doing a mantra or focusing on a visualization, or, maybe there's a phrase or a psalm or something that speaks to you and focusing your thoughts on that. That can be a form of meditation. It's directed thought. Now, I have also had an experience of meditation that is very hard to describe, but is the most powerful. And I heard it explained by a meditation teacher who I can talk about in another time. But basically, he explains it like our thoughts are a movie playing in front of our minds all day long. Sort of like on CNN, you know how, like if you watch, well, BBC for you guys, but like on CNN where you have like the ticker of news going on the bottom all the time, like that's our thoughts, right? They're constantly moving in front of us like this. Fine. It's sort of like a movie. The problem is we think we're in the movie. So we keep getting in the movie and getting lost in this movie thinking that it's reality, when actually we're just watching the movie. We're the observer of the movie. Like if it rains in a movie, the screen, we don't get wet. It's just a movie, right? If I'm thinking about rain right now, my hair doesn't get wet. I'm just thinking about it. Meditation is stepping out of the movie, remembering that I'm the observer and just sitting and being. Letting the thoughts go. The movie's going to keep playing. There's nothing to do. Like people who are like, stop your thoughts. Good luck. I've tried for 20 years. Not going to happen. They're going to go. Okay? Let them go. Let them play. Be aware. Watch them. But know that you're in the movie theater. Sitting and being present. And knowing that God is sitting in the seat next to you. That's what, for me, what meditation is about. Now, even during meditation, I'll get back in the movie and get locked in again and go, oh, wait, I'm in the movie. Nope. Okay, come back. It's okay. Sit down again. Let's come back into the theater. We're not in the movie. We're in the theater. That's really, for me, what meditation is about. And when I can get into that place of remembering where I really am, where I'm really sitting, the movie gets really quiet. And I get really quiet and peaceful. And that's when I sort of cozy up in that lacuna, when everything's quiet and it's open space and it's calm and there's just this moment and presence. That's, for me, the goal of meditation, to bring myself back to this present moment without thoughts of the future, without thoughts of the past, without projection, without living in my movie. Because really, and Sandy Beach, who's an AA speaker, says this all the time, the only place we can experience God is right now. We can maybe see what God did looking in the past, and we can maybe predict what God's going to do in the future. But the only place we can experience God is in this moment right now, because this is the only reality that we're in. I spend a lot of time living in the past and future, but that's not where I am. I'm here right now. Actually, I heard Sandy tell this story once about, I don't know, obviously it's not a real story, but it's like AA people who got together and somebody was like, they wanted to have like a special meeting and they were like, well, I think we should have it 2 years from now, because that way everybody will have time to prepare and everybody will know, and like we'll probably get more people because they can fly in, whatever. Somebody says, I think we should do it 2 years ago, because we have some experience now and we know what we should say during that meeting and it will help people for the future. And somebody else said, I think we should have it right now. And people were like, well, what do you mean? We haven't prepared. Well, the truth is we could have it 2 years from now. And we could also have it 2 years ago, but either way, whenever we have it, it will still be right now. So we should probably just have it right now. And that's what this is. If I want to experience God, I need to experience God right now, which means past, thank you for being there. Thank you for everything that you've taught me. Don't need to rehash you right now. I can always come back and visit later. Future, you know, past is usually regret and resentment. Future is usually fear. So I got you. I know you're there. Well, trust me, I will be coming back to visit probably later on today. But for right now, let's just be here. And that's what the movie does. The movie's saying, go back to the past, go back to the future, take yourself to some other world, life, alternative universe, megaverse, or whatever. Just be here. Even if it's for 30 seconds, those 30 seconds of peace and quiet are a game changer. Because the talking that happens in my head is the junk that blocks me from hearing God's voice. I need to hear God's voice because I need direction to learn how to run my own life. Because when I try to run it myself, I get into trouble. And I do shit that I have to make amends for, or that I have to clean up. I'll give you an example, okay? Last week, so I don't know, maybe people can relate with this, especially people with children. I get money because I work, and then the money comes, and then I pay for things, and then the money's gone. It's really annoying. Like, like I just want to have some money, and like I have it, and then it goes away, and it's like, and so, um, my stepdaughter, thank God, met a wonderful guy, and I think she's going to be getting engaged and married. So I'm pumped, right? Like, first of all, like more kids, and then I get to get dressed up. Oh my God, I get to wear like sequins. I already told her I'm coming in full drag to the wedding. Anyway, so I'm like thinking about this wedding that I'm gonna have to help pay for. I'm thinking about, when's my next client coming? When's this? When's this? Oh, I have to pay for this. Oh, I owe this. Oh, and I just get into the ping pong, the ping pong of all the money. And I get really frustrated. And then of course I get paid again. So I get paid again, and I'm like, you know what? I just got paid. I deserve to go shopping. So I went to my friend Rosie's house, and my friend Rosie has the most fabulous thrift shop. Like, fabulous. I really like shopping thrift for two reasons. Number one, because I can tell myself that I'm doing good for the environment. And number two, because it's cheap. So then she gets stuff from America. Okay. So she has like good stuff. So I go to her shop and I spend like 250 bucks. Now, for 250 bucks, I get a wardrobe. It's not like I'm getting like a sweater, like it's worth it. And then I come home with my haul, and my husband's like, listen, I love this for you. I'm just saying that there were some other things that we needed to pay for. And I was like, no, but I wanted to be a spoiled brat for a minute. Now, what would have happened if I'd stopped at Rosie's and been like, listen, God, you know how I'm feeling today. This place is gorgeous. What are we thinking? Like, God, and I'll tell you what God would have said. God would have said, I love this for you. Do you need 14 items or can we buy five? What are we thinking? I'm thinking, like, pick the things you love and not the things that are just good to have. That's what God would have said. Because God wants me to go shopping. I'm telling you. I know this. Because it brings me joy. I'm a sick person, you guys. Okay, anyway, so that's my point. Now, thank God we could afford it and everything's fine. But was it responsible? No. No, it was completely irresponsible. Now, that's not to say that I don't say no to myself 99% of the time, which I do. Okay. Like I'm not one of those, I'm not like my mother, God bless her, who would go out and spend like $1,000 a week on clothes and books and CDs and stuff. Okay. Bless her heart. I am not like that. I am not like compulsively, but I would say once every few months for sure. I go to town. My point is, I need to bring God on my shopping trips also. I need to meditate in my car before I go in and be like, God, let's do this together. You tell me what you want me to buy or not buy, or maybe instead of shopping, God, have me grab my friend and let's go get a coffee. The point is, like, it can't be self-propulsion because when I run my life by self-propulsion, I get in trouble. I just don't have good ideas. Like, I think my ideas are brilliant, but they're actually not good ideas. Like, I know that I'm getting into trouble when I have an idea and I feel like the motor in the back of my boat is like, go, like this thing, go make it happen. And like, and I also know that it's self-propulsion when I'm not interested in what my husband has to say about it. Like don't ask him, just bypass, like this is this is like a lesson I've been learning over and over again that when Ria has an
Ria, you have
idea,
5 minutes remaining.
thank you so much. When Ria has an idea, if I'm ready to rock immediately, that's not a good idea. Or it might be a good idea, but like check in with a few people first, you know? Prayer and meditation. I need to do that for that reason. I'm looking here. Okay. I'm looking here. Okay, right. So Bill knows me very well. He wrote about me in this book. He's like obsessed with me. He says, perhaps our trouble was not that we used our imagination, right? Perhaps the real trouble was our almost total inability to point imagination toward the right objectives. So that's not to say that my ideas are bad ideas. I'm a very smart, capable person. That's not the issue. The issue is that I say, that's what should happen, let's go, as opposed to, okay, I got this idea. Is this a God-centered idea? And if it isn't, is it an idea that I could maybe bring some people in on? It might not be wrong. It just might need some help with the execution, you know? There's nothing the matter with constructive imagination, right? We have ideas, we need ideas, we get plans, we're supposed to have these things. That's what our brains are for. All sound achievement rests upon it. But meditation is like that too. It helps to envision our spiritual objective before we try to move toward it, right? So, like, for example, if I want to be in that lacuna, if I want to be in a sense of presence, I should be, it's okay for me to think about that. It's okay for me to plan and think about the kind of person I want to become, the goals I want to achieve, and meditate toward those things to have that direction. That's great. But it can't be, I'm going to not gossip about anyone ever starting right this second right now. It's not, first of all, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Okay. I love the tea. It's just how it is. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that I need to ask God to guide me. I just need to ask for guidance. That's what prayer is. And meditation helps me get quiet so that I know what's true and what's real. Because my brain, my fear and my resentment are liars, and they lie to me about what was and what will be. If I listen to my fear, I'm going to be homeless in like 15 minutes. I'm going to be homeless. My kids are going to starve and they're going to take them away from me. We're going to get divorced and someone's going to take all my clothes away. I'm going to be really upset about that. So, and I'm going to be hungry, which is a nightmare. I'm a Jew. Genetically, I'm wired to be afraid of hunger, okay? Like it's not good for us. So so like it's very scary for me. But that's a lie. That's just a lie. Just like I have stories about things that happened to me, that's just my perspective. I've met people years down the road who told me a completely different version of the story that I told myself for years. I thought that, I'll give you an example. My brother, God bless him, didn't talk to me for 12 years. And I had no idea why. I would talk to his wife and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I tell him to talk to you and he won't do it. And I'm like, okay. So I thought it was, he's this, or maybe I did A, B, and C. And finally, after 12 years, he came to me and he was like, I'm going to tell you what happened. I said, okay. When you were young, when we were all young, you were the squeaky wheel in our house. Me, meaning me. My mother poured everything into me because I was always like dieting or going to this weight loss place and having mental health issues and blah, 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 blah. And I took up a lot of my mom's emotional energy. Just a fact. He's not wrong. But because of that, he felt like he had emotional needs that weren't met. And his anger at my parents was misdirected at me. I had a whole other story about what happened. I thought it was, well, maybe it was when I said this and blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, I just had needs that weren't met as a kid, and it was really painful. How can I not have compassion for that? Like, how can my heart not say, oh, little Aaron, I'm so sorry. Like I couldn't even have a resentment because I was like, wow, I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to, feel like you're not getting what you need. And not necessarily from my parents, but just in general. So the point is, when I meditate, I get back, thank you, and I'll wrap up. I get back to the present moment and which is where the truth is. This moment is where the truth is. And for every moment, even when something terrible is happening, really, everything's fundamentally okay because I'm alive and I'm abstinent and I'm here. And you know what? Even if I was eating, God forbid, everything is still fundamentally okay. I'm still being held. And so are you. So that's all. Thanks.